All right, we all know about the government shutdown, right? Typically, that limits any sort of financial reports, but one snuck by. Why? Well, because Social Security cost of living adjustments and inflation, it waits for no shutdown. So, what's in this report? Why does it matter? And what should you do next? Coming right up after this quick break. Welcome back, folks. I am Chris Hobart, the wealthologist, and today I wanted to unpack a report that really snuck through a government shutdown and really might be the Fed's next clue to inflation's future. You got it. That's right. It is this month's Consumer Price Index, the CPI report. It just dropped despite a government shutdown. Now, why? Typically, stuff is done. Well, Social Security Administration needed it to calculate next year's cost of living adjustments, or COLA, for over 70 million Americans. But beyond COLA math, this CPI report, and there's some juicy stuff in there. First, overall inflation, it came in at 0.3%, which just a hair below the expected 0.4%. Core inflation, which strips out food and energy, it landed at 0.2%. So still, if we look year over year, the number sits at 3%, which is above the Fed's 2% target. But it starts to get a little bit spicy here. Since Powell took the Fed's reins, inflation's averaged about 3.5%. But I want to zoom in on the last 8 months. Things are cooling. Annualized rates showed 2.5% overall and 2.7% core. Now, that's not necessarily mission accomplished, but we are trending in the right direction, which is important here. Something else, rent. Big news here. Rent inflation is slowing a lot. Annual rent growth was just 3.5% in September, which is down from a peak of 8.3%. Now, there's a new tenant rent index that fell off the cliff in Q2 2025. It was down 8.4% just in one quarter alone. That's huge. That's kind of like the rent market yelling, chill already. Now, the question I think you're probably thinking is, why should I care? Well, here's the deal. Rent makes up a whopping 35% of CPI. When rent cools, inflation does too, which could give the Fed room to cut interest rates. Translation: loans might get cheaper and markets might perk up a bit with that news. Now, there is a twist, of course. While short term inflation looks tame and it's getting better, there's still those long term concerns lingering out there. If the Fed misplaces its hand or continues to dance with political pressure, we could see inflation expectations creep up again, kind of like we saw in the 70s. All right, so what's my take? First, I want you to keep your eyes open and your portfolios flexible. If you're a renter, this could be a good time to negotiate. If you're investing, be ready for potential interest rate changes ahead. So, my question for you: are you feeling inflation in your day to day, or are things starting to feel a little bit better? Drop a comment below, and if you like the content that makes sense in this wild economy, give us a like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's still trying to figure out why rent is their biggest bill. All right, folks, until next time, have a great week.